Hey everybody, as you know, I've been digging into the alchemy of ancient Egypt, and I've also been comparing it to the alchemy that I find in art from the Christian side of things. And what I find is that in the alchemy of ancient Egypt and in the alchemy of Christianity, basically the theme is the same. Not only do we see a parallel between Jesus and Osiris, we also see a parallel in the alchemy as to how they are depicted. Now, as I've shown you before, this, for example, is just one of many examples of what we find inside these cathedrals. It all comes back to the human body. It comes back to the brain. You have to understand that when you say heart thinking and stuff like that, what is really meant by that is putting feelings into thought. Obviously, the heart plays a role, but what we're seeing in all of the alchemy here is we're seeing the brain. The brain is what's being focused on here. And that's important because when we also think of the Eye of Ra, the Eye of Ra, or the Eye of Horus, is in the brain. And it is through the heart, or through the heart thinking, or through the feelings put into heart, through the intuitive and the right hemisphere of the brain mixed with the left hemisphere of the brain, making the two one again, is how you reach these higher forms of consciousness. It's basically set you on your way in order to reach this eventual Eye of Ra, which is what we want to do, right? So what I'm showing you right here is just some example of some Christian alchemy. I've shown you more. Here's an example between Christian and ancient Egyptian. As you can see, it centers on the third eye. It centers on the Ark of the Covenant, which some have said before is a black hole. Makes perfectly sense. It also is the area where the soul is. The Ark of the Covenant. See where this red dot is? That's where the pineal gland is. This pineal gland has been what is depicted in all of this alchemy over and over as what is very important. We're going to go into a little bit more of that as we dig into the map that's been provided for us by the ancient Egyptians with the Nile and the Nile Delta and so forth. We're going to take a look at what that provides us. Now, recently I showed you what Michelangelo showed us hidden in church art. This is his thing called crucifix. It's a wooden carving, and basically it is the pineal gland. And so what we see hidden in alchemy, Jesus on the cross, just like I showed you in that last photo, the brain stem. The reason his legs are put together like that is to show the brain stem, and his face, just like we will see with Osiris, is placed where the pineal gland is. And what we have seen before about the pineal gland, it is also shown in church alchemy as Yahweh, or a sun, in between the two angels of the Ark of the Covenant. So we have two suns going on. We have the sun, which is the masculine part of which is the right side, or excuse me, the left hemisphere of the brain. We have the moon, which is the right hemisphere of the brain. But then we have the sun of righteousness. The sun of righteousness is what is the pineal gland, which is located in between the two. And right here we're seeing Jesus as the brain stem, and his face where the pineal gland is. That's the reason we see a sun behind Jesus' face. Once again, here's another example. And another example. And one more example. Now, just to dig into this map a little bit, this area that you're looking at right here with the two columns on it, this is Busiris. It's about one of the only pictures you're going to find on the internet with Busiris. But this right here is ancient hieroglyphics, and it is a depiction, and you can also find this in, I believe, E.A. Wallace Budge, his Book of the Dead, or Book of Coming Forth by Day. But this is where the Ba of Ra and the Ba of Osiris met and embraced in Jadu, the place of the Jed pillar, which is also known as the House of Osiris. So the House of Osiris, well, we have to understand what the hieroglyph for Osiris is to understand what Osiris represents. This is an old diagram that I made a long time ago. But if you notice right here, this is taken from a church, I believe it was in the 1700s. Notice Yahweh, the sun, in between the two angels on the Ark of the Covenant, as shown as a sun, right? And we always see Jesus' head behind the sun. Right here, what you see, the eye and the triangle, this is your triangle right here, and this is your eye, which represents the pineal gland. This is the map that the ancient Egyptians gave us, because this area right here is Osiris, and we can see that the Nile represents the spinal cord, and this area represents the brain. So what they're showing us right here is they're giving us a map of where to look, which is what I just showed you, that area of Osiris. So here is what Osiris' hieroglyph is. His hieroglyph is an eye and a throne. And translated by E. A. Wallace Budge, who translated the Book of the Dead and these other pyramid texts and things like that, he said that the hieroglyphs for Osiris are an eye and a throne, or an eye and a tent, which is what you see right here and what you see right here. So Osiris represents the pineal gland. So coming back over here, the house of Osiris, and as I've shown you before, this area that you see right here, as I depicted a while back, it makes perfect sense now. We know that the map of the Nile is correct when we see that this is the place that they embraced and their souls met, because, well, they're showing some kind of a correspondence between the micro and the macro there. But it's also showing you the place in the brain. This also lines up with what we've seen in the Nile Delta, and of course the Nile Delta in its relationship to the area in the Orion Nebula, which is our other map. We have two maps that we can refer to here. We have the Nile area in Egypt, and we have this area out in the Orion Nebula. And you also have to remember that it also says in the pyramid texts, it says in pyramid text 442, utterance 442, it says, "Lo, he has come as Orion, lo, Osiris has come as Orion." So, lo, Osiris, which is represented as the pineal gland, has come as Orion. Well, here is Orion right here. Here's the pineal gland I keep showing you. So this basically is showing you, they are showing you the macro to the micro version, and yes, they are showing you that this area right here, which as I have been depicting so far as the pineal gland, is exactly that. This area right that you see right here is Osiris, and it also maps to the area that we see inside the Nile Delta that maps to Osiris. All of this is falling right into place. So here we are again. The two pillars that you see next to each one, I'm not positive, but this is the only thing I've seen as far as a picture of Osiris. This very well may be the physical representation of what we see right here. So, but I believe this is definitely correct as far as the map goes. We need to take a look at the water channels here on the Nile here pretty soon and understand. I also need to take a look at the Eye of Ra itself. There are some things that I've seen on the Eye of Ra that I believe are have been turned around by mistake. The reason I say that is because we see two stems coming out of the Eye of Ra. See, here's currently what we see on the internet, people showing as far as the Eye of Ra compared to the brain. But I'm thinking that this may not be right. And the reason I say that this may not be right is because on all of the Eyes of Ra that you see, you always see this stem, and it sticks out right there. And that thing where it sticks out right there is important, because I believe what that is showing us is the fourth ventricle. I believe that that's what that is. I'm not really sure what this thing is yet, but I believe that this area right here is showing us the fourth ventricle, and wrapped around that fourth ventricle is where you see the cerebellum. And so I'm digging into that as much as I can. And let me show you some more alchemy. Here's some more Egyptian alchemy that I found right here, showing the two lions. One thing you're going to notice about the sun that's inside this container right here. It fits what you're seeing right here inside this container. The sun, and the reason they're facing back to back. Notice the way that their tails are. Notice the way that they don't touch. They're following the channel right here. Remember, Osiris hieroglyph is an eye and a throne. Well, here he is. This represents the brain stem. This represents the left and right hemisphere. And then we see Osiris. Notice the way that he's kneeling with his legs right here. We have the same depiction going on here. Now, what I've heard a couple of people say, I forget his name, over in Egypt, it says that this top crown right here represents the thymus. I disagree, because if we realize that Osiris is an eye on a throne, which is really the pineal gland, which is what this is referring to, and we see that his face is actually where the sun is, it's actually where the pineal gland is, then what we actually see happening is we see the two thalamus coming up, touching, and then separating again. And I believe that this is what we're seeing right here with this crown that he's wearing. I think that we see it narrow and then come back out again, just the way the thalamus do. And we can take a look at his shoulders and see how those compare, and the way he's sitting right on this throne, which is right here on top of this. Notice the way that their arms follow the lines of this as well. Here's another one. This is ancient Egyptian art right here, showing Osiris' whole body. You can see how it gets thinner because it represents the brain stem. Notice the dip, the darker area in the middle of his body also represents this darker area that you see right here. Notice that his necklace area also represents this curved area that you see right here, the necklace area. And of course the pineal gland once again represents the face. The crown represents the two thalamus as they get narrower and come back apart again. And so this is where I'm at right now. I just wanted to show you some of the latest alchemy and find out. I wanted to get a really good definition of Osiris. And then, so when we take a look at the pyramid text and we see that Osiris has come as Orion, what they're actually saying is they're saying that the pineal gland is being represented as Orion. That's the way I interpret it. That's what makes perfect sense. And so when we take a look out there in the Orion Nebula, I mean, this is exactly what we see. We see that this area, what you see right here is basically the Eye of Ra. This is the Eye of Ra that you're looking at right here. And you can see, the reason I believe that that area that I was talking about has to do with the fourth ventricle is because when we take a look and we zoom in on this thing, let's see if I can find a better picture for you here. Well, here's one right here. But this area right here, as I've shown you, comes out and shows, here's the cerebellum, okay? And here it is right here. All you have to do is highlight the parts that are highlight the shadows basically, and the other part. And this comes out. And you can see that the dip is the same. But this represents the fourth ventricle. But what we also see right here in this picture, this huge Eye of Ra that we're seeing right here in the Orion Nebula, is we see that same thing that we normally see on the other side. So here's what we're seeing right now. So this area that's the trapezium, we have already mapped this to the Nile so that we know we're facing the correct direction. That being said, we know that the brain is facing the correct direction based on what we see on the Nile. That's what nature shows us. So then, considering that point, the fourth ventricle, see here's an Eye of Ra right here. You see that point that comes up? You see the same thing right here next to where the cerebellum is. And if you notice, when you expand the brain out, if this is where the fourth ventricle is, the pineal gland is right up here. I know this is facing the correct direction because we've already mapped it to the Nile, and the Nile shows us that we're mapping it in the correct direction, as well as what Michelangelo has shown us, and what we're seeing when we overlaid the brain on top of the Orion Nebula. It's all of these things together that are showing us the correct way to look at this thing. And therefore, I think that regardless of what people do when they turn this eye the other way around, for this part right here to represent the frontal lobe, I believe that it represents the fourth ventricle. And this is based on what nature is showing us. This is based on what the overlays are showing us with the Nile and everything. And so that's what I'm going to go with, because I go with nature above everything. I'm not seeing people account for the fourth ventricle when they turn this eye the other way. And this is important because we need to understand why this symbol is on the eye the way that it is. This area right here that curls around, we can see that that's located inside the Orion Nebula as well. Now, what it represents, it looks like it is below the frontal lobe, so I'm guessing it has something to do with the optic tracts, maybe. I'm not really sure exactly what it has anything to do with, but I believe that this right here, and notice that it is right underneath the trapezium as well, which tells us that we're on the right track, because this tear duct area of the Eye of Ra is apparently where the trapezium is, and inside that trapezium is where the pineal gland is located. So this is what the nature is showing us, and this is what I'm going with for right now. And it's important to remember, Lo has come as Orion, Lo Osiris has come as Orion, utterance 442. Knowing that Osiris has something to do with the pineal gland, we can see how all this is falling together. So I wanted to share this Egyptian alchemy with you guys, and show you how it all ties in, show you what the actual hieroglyph of Osiris is, show you in the pyramid text that they reference him as Orion as well. We tie that back to what we see in Orion. We see that Eye of Ra out there. We see the brain out there. All this stuff is falling together. So I want to bring this to you guys. Y'all take care, and I'll talk to you soon.